Well, I mean, this is interesting. Just out of curiosity, like I want to know more. I'm dying to know, like, what's the actual kind of linchpin of this business and how viable and how sustainable is it, especially since 2021? What's been going on?
Yeah, I'm sure there's an interesting story here, and it probably did get sold because the story was, probably something that was sustainable, or someone came along that was a kind of a competitor or in the space somehow already, and this was a good add-on. Welcome to another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. I'm Heather Enderson, and today Mills and I looked at a really interesting business that is a distributor and importer of Asian specialty foods, specializing in the Japanese and Korean market. It was a really interesting business. There's a lot going on in the numbers. We were sort of guessing at what might have happened with the supply chain and how this business might have taken advantage of it. Also, we got into a pretty deep dive discussion about working capital when you're looking at a business like a distributor that has to invest a lot in inventory and carrying goods like that. So it's a really good discussion. I hope you can join it.
Hey, Michael here. Want to talk to you about today's sponsor for the episode, which is cloudbookkeeping.com. So Cloud Bookkeeping is actually run by my neighbor, Charlie. So I've met him in person and can attest that he's a real human being and a good person. And what Cloud Bookkeeping does is offer a full suite of bookkeeping services, all in the cloud, for you around QuickBooks and other technologies that you're using as a small business owner. So if you're interested in getting the bookkeeping part of running a business off of your plate and focusing on running your business, Charlie and his team are one to call. They can put together a bunch of other stuff in terms of helping you manage and grow your business besides just bookkeeping, sophisticated reporting, definitely helping you get your QuickBooks online set up in the right way, and a number of things around payroll as well. So definitely know them and recommend them. If you want to find out more about Cloud Bookkeeping, you can go to their website at cloudbookkeeping.com, reach out to Charlie. I know many of you have, and see if he can help you make your running your business easier and more fun by letting them help with a lot of the bookkeeping solutions. So, and when you call, mention this podcast. It would help us and help Charlie know that we're supporting him as well. So thanks a bunch, and cloudbookkeeping.com as the sponsor for today's episode.
Happy Monday, Bill. Bill. I called you Bill. Sorry, Mills.
Wow.
It rhymes with Bill. Is that good?
Heather, if Bill is the worst thing I get called today, it's a great day. Okay.
Okay, good.
No, we do miss Bill and Michael. It's just you and me holding down the fort today, and faithful Gustavo in the background that our viewers and our listeners can't see. But did you have a good weekend?
I did. It was a great weekend. Although I'm still waiting for the California sun. It is still, I'm wearing a sweater. It's cold. But it was a great weekend. Yeah.
We got you covered in South Carolina. It's brutally hot and just getting hotter. So
yeah, that's where how it is everywhere, it seems like, except here.
Yeah, but we have good weather for roofing. But yeah, we got a fun deal to talk about today. This one is kind of unique. I have not seen something like this in a while. So I'm going to share my screen. This is an Axial deal, axial.com. We've been talking about their deals from time to time when we come across good ones. And can you see it on the screen?
Yeah, this one looks really interesting.
All right, so I'll read it, and then
okay.
Yeah, we can banter from there. So this is a premier Asian specialty food importer, processor, and distributor. The company is a leading importer, processor, and distributor of Asian specialty foods with a strong focus on Korean and Japanese goods. Its products are widely available across North America in restaurants, grocery stores, and specialty markets. Key aspects, they say product sourcing. They excel in sourcing high demand and unique products with exceptional lead times, ensuring a competitive edge in the market. Private labeling, they boast an extensive private labeling portfolio catering to a diverse range of customer needs and preferences. Customer retention, they enjoy a high customer return rate of 96%, demonstrating strong customer loyalty and satisfaction. They have supply chain stability. They say that they maintain a stable supply chain through a wide network of long-term suppliers, ensuring consistent product availability. They also have high margins on their products, benefiting from the increased demand for Asian specialty foods. They list some growth opportunities. Industrial sales market. There's potential to capitalize on the industrial sales market, tapping into a new customer segment and revenue stream. It makes me wonder, are they wholesaling or is it like maybe somehow retail? I'm not really sure what industrial would refer to.
Yeah, I'm confused by the word industrial with food here as well.
They also talk about product expansion. They want to increase product offerings that it could attract a broader customer base and meet the growing demand for Asian specialty foods. They talk about the possibility to expand their sales team, which they could, drive further growth and more market penetration. How hard could it be? E-commerce platform. They talk about establishing their own e-commerce platform to expand their sales and market reach. Business intelligence. This is quite a growth opportunity. These are so generic. It's kind of cracking me up. Implementing business intelligence software presents an opportunity to gain operational efficiencies and enhance the business decision-making process. All right. Quick financials. We have 2019 through 2021. We have 3 years worth. In 2019, the revenue was $3.9 million and they made about $350,000 in EBITDA. In 2020, they did $3.3 million in revenue, so they declined by about 15%, and they did $550,000 in EBITDA. And then in 2021, they jumped up to $6.8 million in revenue, over 100% growth, and $2 million in EBITDA, or 29% EBITDA margins. They say they're located in the central Midwest U.S., and they are looking for a sale or change of control. They are listed in terms of industries here as grocery and related product distributors, and then in parentheses, wholesalers. So it's kind of hard to tell what this company really is doing, but what an interesting kind of segment they focus on. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, I'm imagining, sort of an importer of consumer packaged good foods that are going to be on the shelves of either the Asian market or Asian aisle of a regular grocery store, or more particularly in, grocery stores that cater to Asian or to Korean or Japanese markets. And where I live, we have both. We have Japanese, catering kind of grocery stores and a lot of Korean as well. So I've been in these kind of stores, and I know there's a lot of specialty products that, definitely are imported. They're manufactured in those countries and they're imported. And that's what I'm imagining. It feels like it's a very supply chain oriented business, and they're sort of highlighting that's sort of their strength. And when I look at the numbers, because their numbers are really confusing, I think it, sort of tells that story, because we've only got 1 year past COVID, 21. That's the year that they grow. Obviously, 2020 would have been a really weird year for a business that's importing products from Asia. So, you probably can't really draw too many conclusions from 2020 itself. I'm really curious what 22 and 23 looked like, because, you also can't judge this business by 19. It was a really tiny business in 19. So something happened, when the supply chain sort of blew up, and maybe it's when they kind of put it back together, they put it back together in a way that really works for this business. This is what I'm imagining anyway.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to talk about with sellers, in a business scenario like this, when they're like, oh, we want to be paid a multiple off of like 2021, right? Free cash flow is to, okay, so let's just say it's, I don't know, somewhat conservative, 3.5 to 4 times multiple on $2 million. You're talking about, $7 or $8 million purchase price. But to go, wait. A year ago, 18 months ago, you were making $500,000 a year, Has this been a structural change? Is it normative going forward? Or is this just you wanting to top tick, and be able to kind of cash out on top, and it's not necessarily something I can bank on, or a new owner can bank on going forward. And I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but I think if you probe, usually you can kind of find some clues about, maybe things that would make you think it is more, substantive and it would last, or things that would make you go, this was kind of a flash in the pan and it's really not going to persist.
Right, exactly. Like something big changed here. They didn't really give us many clues, and it wasn't any of these growth opportunities. We can kind of eliminate those, right? I guess that's one clue is they didn't do any of those things. We're still trying to figure out what industrial food is. Someone will have to email me and tell me what that is. I don't understand, but they list a whole bunch of things and they didn't do any of those to grow. So I have a feeling My gut tells me it's something to do with the way the supply chain sort of came back together. They found an opportunity to get some shelf space probably on some of these. If they were the ones, they sort of said something, they gave us a hint about their lead times. So maybe that was it. Hey, we can get this product on your shelf faster. Remember those empty shelves that we had, post COVID? Maybe it was a little bit of that. There was an opportunity there. They were able to source things faster than others and were able to grow the business nicely as a result. I like where the margins ended up in 21, but the prior periods, I'm not too excited about those margins, especially 19, where, it's less than a 10% margin on what I assume are perishable. I'm sure these are probably in cans and packaged, food, but still it's perishable.
Yeah. It doesn't last forever. And, we don't have all the info, but what if this business started in 2018? That's a totally different story than this is a 10-year-old business and they were just subscale for a decade. I think looking at their business model, if they're a distributor, right, they are probably very low overhead, relatively speaking. They have a sales staff probably, and the fulfillment is all, really probably outsourced. So the extra $3 million, that they added in revenue, a little over $3 million, it looks like they achieved some operating scale, and half of that fell to the bottom line. They probably had fixed cost overhead of, the owner and the infrastructure and the office. But for a distributor, it's not like a manufacturing outfit where in order to produce twice as much, you have to have twice as much throughput or twice as many product lines or, twice as many people in the field. You're operating on thin margins as a distributor. And so it makes me a little bit suspect. Like I would expect that their margins, are not normal in any of these years almost. I think they're probably in most distributors that I look at are probably low teens, or high single digit, even when they get to some scale. So part of my concern is, are they exploiting a niche right now that is, underutilized, underexplored, and all of a sudden their profits are going to attract a bunch of competition and eat away and erode their margins. But we don't really know how long this business has been around. We don't know, what it's done since then. And honestly, we probably are looking at dated material because this business sold. That's probably why we don't have 22, 23 and year-to-date 24 info, because it changed hands and all of a sudden nobody wanted to broadcast updated financials.
Yeah, that's what I figured too. The other thing I think about when I look at a distributor is working capital. There's all this inventory management, and I want to know, like, how well are they managing the inventory? What is the inventory? How quickly does it turn over? Are there, is there waste in the inventory that, has to be thrown out because they weren't able to sell it? So I look at that, but I also then look at, what is a buyer going to do? How much working capital is going to be included in the deal? How much is that as inventory versus liquid, ARs and cash? And I think it makes, it raises the degree of difficulty for someone to come along and buy this kind of business, at least as an individual buyer, as a non-strategic buyer, because they really have to think that through as a part of their offer. If you think about it as an afterthought, it can actually sort of structurally change the deal, because you realize, oh my gosh, I need a ton of cash, and I didn't include that in my offer. Now this does not make sense. So it's something I work with first-time buyers a lot, as you know, and that's one of the things we talk through is, think about the kind of business that you're buying, think through what that cash conversion cycle really looks like. And when we talk about what does it look like when you close, how much working capital are you getting? And then what are the components of that working capital? I have had people buy distributor businesses and find out after the fact that there was some inventory that they couldn't move, that was effectively obsolete, or whatever word we want to use.
Common.
And yeah, super common. So that's the first, flag that goes off in my head whenever I think about a distributor business is, boy, we need to learn a whole lot about this cash conversion cycle and this inventory that you're going to get.
Heather, when you're, working through somebody's projections and maybe even like stress testing them, because I know the lender is, and you're kind of helping them proactively think about that. One of the red flags to me is whenever I see somebody only doing annual projections, annual pro forma, just snapshot, 1 point in time. Do you find, are you helping people get it into quarterly or monthly, cash flow projections?
I love this question. You're asking me the perfect question. I like my clients to do a monthly working capital forecast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a P&L, but it takes it down all the way to the granular level. Okay, what we start with our starting cash, and now what's happened to cash, receivables, inventory, and payables every month.
Yeah.
And then you run different scenarios. If the business is seasonal, monthly is an absolute necessity. But even if it's not seasonal and you're expecting growth, or you have projects, or you have to kind of think through, what does the year look like? Because when you do that forecast, you can find sort of the soft spot, like, oh, here in month 8, I am really tight on cash and I will need a line of credit, and I can see about how much I would need to draw on a line of credit. So now I know how much to ask for. If you don't do that, and I've certainly seen people who didn't do it, who didn't know to do it, you get the term loan closed, let's say. Mm-hmm. You get close to month 8 and you go, oh, hey, bank, can you please give me a line of credit now? Because I'm tight on cash. Guess what? You can't get it then. Mm-hmm. They will not give it to you. Even though that doesn't really make sense, it becomes extremely difficult to get a line of credit after you close. But if you did that exercise before and you said, look, I can see I'm going to need it. Here's why, and here's what it'll look like. You can get it, and it also determines, when I know what that working capital forecast looks like, it determines which bank we would approach, because some banks don't do lines of credit, or they don't do larger lines of credit. So it really, once we know what you need, we approach only those banks that can give those types of lines of credit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. I think it comes up a lot, and like you're saying, I think it oftentimes comes up for folks a little bit too late, when they realize not just the typical pro forma stuff, because they may look at, annual financials, and maybe they look at monthly, but, like you said, it may be month 8 and all of a sudden you have, insurance premium renewals. Those are typically very lumpy. You may have one-time events. Maybe it's certain things you have to purchase inventory wise, that happen on an annual cycle, not a monthly or a quarterly. And I've seen instances where I'm looking at a pro forma, with somebody, and they are projecting positive free cash flow on an annual basis, but they won't make it there, right? Because of the intermittent negative months. And it's like, hey, on an annual basis, you maybe are good, but in months, 5 through 7, you're hitting negative for, things that are normal in the ordinary course of business, but you need to be prepared for it. And so you're right, especially with distributor, because what somebody's using you for, the reason that, I don't buy materials direct is because I want somebody else to warehouse them. I want somebody else to provide them just in time to me, and they get paid for that. And so in this business, it takes a long time to get something over, the ocean from Asia to the United States. And every grocery store can't stock up on a 6-month supply, or whoever their end customers. Every restaurant can't stock up on a 6-month supply of that really unique specialty thing that they don't need a lot of, but they need it consistently. And so I think it's kind of, okay, who's taking the balance sheet risk? And if this company is taking the balance sheet risk to hold the inventory, then you definitely need to be prepared for it. And then even more to your point, how much of the inventory, we don't have any balance sheet info, how much of that inventory is really actually valued at cost 30, 60 days post close? It's usually a lot less than people think. And they usually discount it, but it's usually still less than that.
Exactly. And the other thing that I find really interesting when I think about the working capital problem for any deal is that during COVID, we had so many government subsidies for small businesses, right? EIDL loans and you name it. There's all kinds of cash flowing in for good reasons. But a lot of businesses, if you look at the balance sheets post 21, they have more cash, excess cash than they ever used to carry because of all that. So on average, everybody ended up with more cash. So you've got these owners who are able to self-finance a lot of these types of operations because they have built up cash over the years, number one, and plus they got extra cash in the last few years. So you as a buyer coming in, they're going to take that excess cash off. What is that deal? What are the deal implications for you when you start over with kind of a minimal amount of cash? Oftentimes it means you need a line of credit as well. So yeah, very, very, very interesting, and always really, really interesting with distributors.
This niche is kind of intriguing to me because it's obviously not, a small total addressable market, a small TAM, but depending on who they're selling to, like this may not be big enough for people to really chase you and go after you and try and compete, much of this away. It's not like you're saying, hey, I want to create the next, Yeti cooler or the next like hot thing. These types of providers, depending on what they're doing, when I read industrial, it made me think. I went on a site visit once in Texas, was visiting a client of mine and reached out to a couple different business owners, just kind of prospecting and just out of curiosity, and ended up going and meeting this guy, sitting down with him. He owned a really fascinating business. They made dry food seasoning that went on like Doritos and Fritos. And it was this like very proprietary blend. They didn't make the chips. They didn't package the chips. They didn't do even wet food seasoning. It was just, and they were in like 100,000 square foot building in Texas, just making the powder that goes on chips for flavoring.
Wow.
And you realize like that's industrial food.
Okay.
That's industrial wholesale, because they're not selling anything to anybody other than like Frito-Lay or whoever. But you know what? They probably have one customer or maybe two or three at the most. Major customer concentration. But this was a huge business. And I think if, it's easy for anybody to say, hey, here's the easy ways to grow this business. Here's our growth opportunities. One of the issues I think with automotive, with anything aerospace related, with, doing it, especially if it's wholesale, there's a very few customers in the pool, especially like food like this. Probably more so than automotive, which there's just a few major manufacturers, and aerospace, a few major manufacturers. But you almost have to go in knowing I'm going to have some customer concentration. There may be, let's just say that as a distributor, they're selling to, some niche kind of Asian grocery chains. They don't have thousands of customers, especially because it doesn't seem like they have enough overhead to have that big of a sales staff. You're good. They don't have that big of a sales staff, so they probably don't have tons of different accounts. So I think that, you got to go in knowing that you could really run into some customer concentration here, which maybe 2021, they landed a huge account, and that's why, or maybe they landed two huge accounts. And so they could have, 20% customer concentration across, 5 different clients. Who knows?
Yeah. Good point. Anytime it's a very niche market, then the pool of customers is smaller, and the possibility for customer concentration is greater. And you reminded me of a story. Now I guess I do know what industrial food is now that I think about it. I went to a deal site visit a long time ago at the Port of Los Angeles, where they were importing these giant, vats or containers of frozen fruit juice concentrate that was going into a soda. They were selling it to, I think, Hansen Soda at the time. And they walked me back in this huge freezer at the port to show me, what that looked like. And you're right. Yeah. Industrial food is massive scale. And I don't think you can go from like bottled sauces and, things like that to industrial. I don't think that translates very easily.
I have a friend who they still have a massive $100 million plus ingredient distributor, not food ingredients, but a basic kind of ingredient distributor. And they were like, how hard could it be? We're used to, moving 300-gallon drums and 55-gallon drums of this stuff. Let's just package it in smaller formats, smaller containers, smaller packaging size for like more Etsy, makers and things like that. And they put, a bunch of money for them, a bunch of money into growing out this, this kind of end customer segment. And it totally fell flat. And they're like, we're used to moving, 55-gallon drums. It doesn't make sense for us to move 2-ounce containers. It's just not the way our business is built, and so
completely different businesses. Yeah, I agree. I'm even thinking of more examples. I learned about hot sauce and the peppers that come over for hot sauce that are imported. They come in these like plastic things that can fit inside a shipping container.
Yep.
So imagine an entire shipping container full of like, I guess they're fermented. They don't have to be refrigerated. They can be shelf stable. I mean, I can't just imagine an entire shipping container full of peppers for hot sauce. That's industrial food. Okay, now I know. Yeah. Now I remember.
It's the things that like when, they're on your plate, at home, or when they're on your plate at a restaurant, you're like, oh, this is nice. But then when you see them in that large of a format, it's kind of gross, and it, creeps you out a little bit. Like it's disturbing. Like, our food supply chain is kind of an anomaly sometimes. Yeah. When you think about it in this way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is interesting. I just out of curiosity, like I want to know more, but I'm dying to know, like, what's the actual kind of linchpin of this, this business, and how viable and how sustainable is it? Especially since 2021, what's been going on?
Right.
Sometimes, like you did it the other day, we talked about a deal and we were like, let's go sign an NDA and get the SIM. And then, it was a little bit dated, and the, broker, they always, kind of love to tell you, right, when it's like, hey, it's sold, you dummy, you took too long.
Yeah. Too slow. Yeah.
Doesn't always work out that way. So
yeah. I'm sure there's an interesting story here, and it probably did get sold because the story was, probably something that was sustainable, or someone came along that was a kind of a competitor, or, in the space somehow already, and this was a good add-on.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if most distributors represent certain product lines. So if you're representing, Asian, Korean, Japanese product lines for, I don't know, some kind of packaged good, and all of a sudden you go, hey, we're really used to distributing, chips, and now we can distribute, sauces or something like that. You already have the customers on both ends. Right. It's just a matter of diversifying your lines. But most distributors get used to, kind of representation of products and vendors. So it would make sense for that type of buyer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say for me, thumbs up on this one in terms of wanting to know more, but there's like 99 scenarios where I could imagine getting the SIM, and it's a very quick pass. There's some scary things that you could unveil and go, kudos to you for running this business, but there's no way that it would be sold.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thumbs up too. Same story. I'd want to see more, hear that story. And I think it's a good business.
Yeah. Well, thanks for everybody for sticking with us and listening to the episode. If you know anything about this space, would love to hear from you and enlighten us. Tell us what we got right. Tell us what we got wrong. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a review or share this episode with a friend, and we'll see you back next week.